electromagnetic wave propagation within good conductors and the flow of powers. Previously, I have considered the electromagnetic wave propagation within lossy homogeneous isotropic medium and lossless homogeneous isotropic medium. But I didn't say anything about the conductors, good conductors, where the conductivity is so high in comparison with the any other mediums. So basically, the previous mediums were the dielectric mediums, but right now I'm going to emphasize this conductor electromagnetic wave propagation through the conductors, because in this lecture we will understand that why we cannot use conductors for the microwave operation. So that is why the first topic I am going to discuss the propagation in good conductors. Next is the skin depth, that is also related with the loss, and the third one is the DC and AC resistance, and the fourth one is the power flow, which is the most important topic I am going to cover in this lecture. So before going to start, we need to understand the properties of the good conductors. Obviously, the properties of the good conductors are mainly depend on these conductivity, which is sigma over here. So that is why for good conductors we assume that the conductivity is very greater than this frequency times the permittivity. Permeability takes the as usual form, that is the permeability of the free space times the permeability of the relative permeability of the conductor itself. Now, when we see these Ampere's law, the modified Ampere's law, we know that in my earlier lecture I have discussed that the loss appears within the equation or within the wave equation through this conductivity. So either we can consider in this way what I have considered in all my earlier lectures, or there is another second way to consider the loss. So that is also uh, I have told a little bit about that. So here I have written the formulation for the complex permittivity, which also includes the loss. So this modified Ampere's law can be modeled in these two way, where in one form we can use the real conductivity and the real permittivity, where this real conductivity incorporates the loss. In other formalism, we can use the complex permittivity, where the complex permittivity includes the loss or the conductivity itself. Let's see how it is taking the conductivity as a lossy factor within this complex permittivity. So as these two equations are modeled equally, or these two equations are basically the same equations, so we can equate the right hand side from the both side from these both equations, and therefore if we take this j omega times epsilon naught common from the second expression, so we can get this expression finally. So this represents the complex permittivity, where this epsilon r represents the uh, real permittivity, and the sigma divided by j omega epsilon naught represents the complex permittivity, and that incorporates loss through this formalism. That means this complex permittivity. Now, if I apply or incorporate this condition that sigma is very greater than omega times epsilon, so that this factor becomes very greater than unity, this one, and the same conditions will be applicable for both the phase constant as well as the attenuation constant, and incorporating this condition onto both of these factors, so we end up with this equation finally, where the expression for the attenuation constant and the phase constant are coming same. That signifies that uh, the more the wave will propagate through a lossy medium, the more it will be attenuated. Similarly, the intrinsic impedance has this expression for its magnitude and this expression for its phase or angle. So if I incorporate that condition that this factor is very greater than 1, then the magnitude will appear in this way. And obviously the angle, so if this goes to very greater than 1, so that's tan inverse of that will go to 90 degree, and so that is why 45 degree is resulting in this equation. So It means that in case of good conductors, the magnetic field and electric field, they are 45-degree out of phase. That is, in our previous lecture we have seen the magnetic field generally lags behind the electric field. So this particular equation, in this case, we from this value of this 45-degree for the angle of intrinsic impedance, we know that this 45-degree appears in the expression of this magnetic field, which signifies that the position or the time from where electric field generates after after certain time equivalent to this angle 45-degree, the magnetic field will be generated, and that magnetic field is corresponding to the electric field which has been generated earlier. But in dielectric medium or in free space, both the electric field and magnetic field generate at the same position at the same time, because this angle was zero in all those cases. Here I have represented two animations that explains the attenuation in a particular medium, in a lossy medium. So this is, that can be either X polarized or Y polarized wave, because it is not it cannot be identified within a single medium. So that's why I have represented it is in this way. So you may consider it is either X direction or Y direction, whatever it is. But it is propagating, the wave is propagating along the Z direction as in our previous case. But look, you can see from here that this is the generation point. The wave is generating at this particular position with larger amplitude. While it is propagating, the amplitude is decreasing. And the same simulation I have represented from the side view. So this is the Z direction, and we can see that this is a generation point, and when the wave is generating and while it is propagating, the amplitude gets reduced. So this is due to the conductivity or the loss factor which I have incorporated within this particular medium while I was simulating this particular wave. From our previous discussion, we have seen that loss appears in our wave equation through this factor, this exponential factor, and at z equals to 0, this represents the initial magnitude, as I have represented over here at z equals to 0. And as the wave propagates through this medium, so the lossy medium, the initial amplitude gets reduced due to this exponential factor, and that is why this reduction of the electromagnetic wave, as shown as I have represented in this animation, is also following some exponential curve as an envelope. So now, how can we quantify such loss? So in general, it is considered that the electromagnetic wave, uh, if gets reduced 37% from its initial magnitude, so that due to the loss, so that value is we can use that value. And below, if electromagnetic wave gets reduced below the 37% of the initial magnitude, so we may consider that power associated with that amplitude or that wave is not usable anymore. So 37% actually appears from this factor e to the power minus 1. So it generally considered that this is the initial magnitude, and it gets reduced by a factor e to the power minus 1 from the initial magnitude as the wave is propagating along the particular direction up to certain distance. Now, that certain distance I have considered here by this small symbol, that is the delta. So as the wave propagates along the z direction, as I have assumed in all my previous lectures, and since in this particular case the medium is a lossy medium, so at the z equals to delta, at this distance I'm considering the magnitude gets reduced by e to the power minus 1 factor from its initial magnitude. And after that the wave gets reduced further even, but we consider that up to this portion, this position, z equals to delta, the wave carries significant amount of power to use in certain devices or circuits or for measurement. Although the power can be measured even after the z equals to delta, but the power corresponding to these amplitudes may not be sufficient enough to power up another device or something else. Now consider the initial equation or original equation for the electric field as I have represented in this slide. And here if you put z equals to 0, you will get the initial magnitude of this electric field that I have obtained in this equation over here. Next, if you put z equals to delta, so that delta will appear in all the term associated with this attenuation constant as well as the phase constant. Now what is delta? Delta is the distance along the direction of the propagation at which the initial magnitude gets reduced by 37%. So the 37% is nothing but this e to the power minus 1 because it has a value of 0.367. So if you take the ratio of this magnitude divided by the initial, so that will offer you 37%. So therefore, uh, if I equate these two terms, e to the power minus alpha times delta is equals to e to the power minus 1, I I will get, as I'm written over here, I got this equation, the delta equals to 1 by alpha. That means the greater attenuation represents less penetration. What does that mean? That means that if attenuation is large or the medium is uh, lossy or heavily lossy, so the wave will take a shorter distance to be reduced by 37%. While if the medium is not lossy, or not lossy means not in such lossy as the previous case, so the loss factor is a smaller one, so alpha is small means this delta is large because it is the inverse relation they are following. So that means the wave can propagate a longer distance before its initial magnitude gets reduced to 37%. And that's all. In this slide, I have represented an animation based on two wires, and the two pieces of wires having similar dimension, that means similar length and similar radius, are being fed by a same electromagnetic wave, but one is lossless, another is a lossy medium. So while the wave is propagating through this lossless medium, you can see each and every amplitude starting from the initial position and at the end positions are being maintained. So this red one is representing the positive peak and the blue one is representing the negative peak. From this color diagram or this color map, you can easily identify this is the positive peak and this is the negative peak, and in between them it represents the zero. So basically the zero appears from the between the positive peak and the negative peak, as you know that appears in general as sinusoidal wave. So at this interface, that means that at the wave front, you can see either the peak one, that is the red one, and after that you will get a zero. So this one and then this one appearing the negative peak, then zero, then again positive peak, then zero, then again negative peak. So the amplitudes are being maintained whatever it was at its initial position. But now look at this lossy medium. It is the same kind of wires I've taken having similar in dimension, but it is lossy in nature. So this initial position, the wave is starting at the same phase as it has started for this lossless case also. But as it is propagating through the medium, the amplitudes gets fading out. The colors are being fading out, representing that due to the loss, the amplitudes gets reduced. And you can see from here the mainly the oscillation. Look, the oscillation of these amplitudes are prominent around the outer region of these two concentric circles. At the middle portion, you can see from this color map that all at the middle portion always zeros, or the value of the electromagnetic field appears zero always. Only the variation you can see observe at the outer side over here. So that represents the delta. That means, so the amplitude, if I consider that gets reduced to 37%, so the wave cannot penetrate the entire wire or entire medium as it is penetrating, or it is covering up the entire medium, entire body of the material. But here it cannot cover the entire body of the material, rather it is only covering a smaller region around its outer radius. You can see from here. So that is the delta, or that represents the delta or the skin depth, within which the amplitude gets reduced 37% from its initial magnitude. Next, consider the DC resistance and the AC resistance. The expression for the DC resistance is well known to us, as I have shown over here, and that is represented by the length of the wire divided by the conductivity of the material times the area of the wire. And since in this case the area uh, radius is represented by A, so that is a pi a square represents the area of the wire I am considering. Now consider the same wire having some since it has a conductivity, so it is a lossy in nature. Therefore, when you look with respect to AC resistance, that means the electromagnetic wave which produces the oscillating current through the medium. So as we have seen, the electromagnetic wave can penetrate only the delta portion, and after that, so the amplitude gets reduced more than 37%. So therefore, so that delta, this portion is the usual portion through which current can flow. So the resistance is going to be offered by that small portion only. So that is why the area right now can be represented by this delta times 2 pi times A. So 2 pi A represents the circumference of the wire times it is the depth to which its initial amplitude gets reduced the 37%. So that is why that represents the area. So if you take the ratio of RAC to RDC, you will end up with this equation. And finally, we can say that RAC is proportional to RDC times square root of the angular frequency, or 2 pi f, or the frequency. So here is the plot I have represented, using which you can understand that as frequency increases, so does the RAC, or the AC resistance gets increased also. So what does that signify? It signifies that the frequencies, at very high frequencies such as in microwaves, the conductors offer very high impedance, and that is why we cannot use the conductors for the microwave signals. This is the one major consequences of that. And another thing is that as the conductors uh, are a very small portion of the conductors are usable to carry current, while higher frequencies are propagating through the conductors, then the most of the body of the conductor are not being used in practical sense. So that also increases the cost, because the body of the conductor is solid, it's made of solid material, while the most of the materials are not being used to carry the current. Rather, a small depth, a smaller region of the conductor are being used to carry the current. So that is why we generally avoid uh, the conductors for the microwave applications, and what we prefer for the microwave applications, so that are the waveguides. And after my successive classes, I will discuss the properties of the waveguides and mechanisms of the waveguides. In all of my previous lectures, I have discussed all about the magnitude part of both the magnetic field and electric field. I didn't say anything about the electromagnetic power. So this is the right time to discuss the electromagnetic power and what it is and what is the expression for the electromagnetic power. Before going to discuss the electromagnetic power, let's consider once again the general definition of the power. Power means there will be a force always associated with the power. Take an example I have shown in this diagram. The force is applied on a particular plane of this object, and the force is being applied with an angle theta with respect to the horizontal axis, which is z axis I am considering in this particular case. Due to application of the force or the power, the object gets displaced from its initial position z equals to 0 to a certain position z equals to d. Now the question is that, is the entire force is responsible for such kind of work done? No, we know that the component of the force parallel to the displacement axis is actually responsible for this work done, and the component of the force perpendicular on this displacement axis does not do any work. Similarly, if you consider the electromagnetic force, and this is actually the expression for the electromagnetic force is called as the Lorentz force equation, where the force due to the electric field is simply represented by this q times of the charge times the electric field, while the force due to the magnetic field includes the charge, speed or velocity of the charge, and the cross product along with the magnetic field itself. So it signifies that since there is a cross product between the velocity of the particle, of the charged particle, with the magnetic field, so in order to the magnetic field to appear, you must have a charged particle, and that must be in motion, because if v equals to 0, so there will be no magnetic force. And along with that, another consequence of this cross product is magnetic field does not do any work, because the this is the velocity, suppose this particle is moving along this direction, and the magnetic field is applied along this direction. So since there is a cross product, so it signifies that it has a direction, the cross product has a direction perpendicular to these two vectors, or perpendicular to the plane containing these two vectors. So in this case, the resultant direction coming from this cross product is actually direction of the force. So that force is perpendicular to the plane containing the motion of the particle, charged particle, or the velocity of the charged particle, and the magnetic field is applying on the charged particle. So the force will be perpendicular to that, and that is why magnetic field does not do any work. In my opinion, a cycloid motion may be the best example to make you understand the electromagnetic force, and that is why I am revisiting the topic once again over here. An electric field and steady electric field I have placed along the vertical direction, and a steady magnetic field is placed along the horizontal direction, while a particle is placed at the origin of the system, and which is initially at rest. Now, since the velocity is zero at initial time, so magnetic field will not apply any force on this particle. However, the electric field will apply the force, and due to this electric field continuous, the steady electric field, the particle gets accelerated along this vertical direction. Now, once the particle gets accelerated along the vertical direction, so it is now in motion. Therefore, the magnetic field will apply the force on this particle. Now, what is the direction of the force? So, since this direction will be the direction for the velocity of the particle, and this direction is the direction of the magnetic field, so force will be on the plane which contains both the velocity vector and the magnetic field vector. So obviously the force will be exerted along this direction. So at some position, due to if there will be no magnetic field, so the particle will be accelerated along this direction vertically. But since there is a magnetic field, so due to the magnetic force, the particle will be deflected a little, or it will be deflected continuously, as it will be accelerated continuously due to the influence of this electric field. Now, after certain position, the particle will experience the magnetic field in such a way that it will bend, and it after attaining a peak, and it will uh, start to decrease, or yeah, or it will start to move in opposite direction as shown over here. And while it is moving in opposite direction to the electric field, so it will be decelerated. And as it is decelerating, so after certain time, the due to its motion and the application of the electric field, the particle will come at rest once again. And at this position, there will be no magnetic force, only the electric force due to the electric field. And due to the force of this electric field, the particle will start to move again, and the same scenario will be repeated again and again. And therefore, the direction of the force, if you curl your right hand from the electric field to the magnetic field as shown in this cartoon over here, so the your thumb will represent the direction of the motion of the particle. So what does that mean? That means due to the presence of electric and magnetic field, the force is applying on the particle, and it is moving the particle or displacing the particle along this direction. So this direction is actually the uh, motion of this particle, represents the motion of the particle, and that can be represented by curling your hand from this E to H. Therefore, In our case, although the electric field and the magnetic field are both space dependent and time dependent, so the scenario is much more complex. However, everything is defined from this Lorentz force equation, and therefore the instantaneous power can be represented in our case also by this expression, that is E cross H. So curling your right hand from E to H, and that will define the direction of the instantaneous power. So this is the expression for the instantaneous power for the electromagnetic force also. The theorem associated with the conservation of energy in the case of electromagnetism is known as Poynting theorem after the British physicist Henry Poynting, and that is represented by this equation. Here, this P represents the instantaneous power, and this is exactly the same thing what I have represented in my earlier slide. And this expression states that the total power coming out from a closed volume enclosed by the surface S is equals to the time rate of decrease of energy stored in electric field and the magnetic field minus the power dissipation is taking place due to some ohmic dissipation or ohmic loss. So that means, suppose for the time being, consider that sigma equals to 0. The medium what I am considering, so sigma equals to 0 is the pure dielectric medium. And for that case, if there is any energy stored within the electric field and the magnetic field, so the time rate of change of those electric field and the magnetic field will produce the outward flux that will carry the power. So in absence of the any input energy, if there is no external input, so that this energy stored in electric field and magnetic field can produce the outward or the outward power, outward flux that can carry the power, and that can available at the outside of this particular volume. Now, if you have some component within a particular volume which causes the dissipation due to the ohmic loss, so you can see, if you consider this part, or you can take this part on the left hand side of this equal sign. So this part will be added with this power leaving from this volume. So the total power is being generated due to these source terms, or the energy stored within this electric field and the magnetic field, which is equals to the power leaving from the volume plus the power gets lost due to the ohmic dissipation. So if you take this part on this side, so that will represent the total power which is being generated. So as a result, if you want to count the what is the power leaving from the volume, obviously that power is not available to the outside of this volume because it is being lost. So that is why we can consider this part on this side, on the generator side. So this is the total generation of the power, and this is the power lost due to the dissipation, and this is the rest power which is available outside of this volume. This diagram, um, it helps to understand this theorem very easily. Here these two factor represents the power or the energy stored within this electric field as well as the magnetic field, and this is the ohmic loss is taking place within this region, and this is the rest amount of power is available at the outside of this particular volume. But in general, the instantaneous power what is represented in this Poynting theorem is not a very useful thing. However, the most useful thing is the time average power, which can easily be derived from this instantaneous power, and that is represented by this expression. I will discuss about this instantaneous power in my next lecture, where when I will discuss the power flow or this reflection of this electromagnetic flow wave for normal incidence and the oblique incidence also.